The episode begins with a young Derek running away from Chris and his family, who are chasing him, wanting to hunt him down. He encounters a shapeshifter who asks him if he's from the Hale family, but before he answers, an arrow from a hunter kills the shapeshifter. Before a second arrow hits Derek, Peter arrives, catches the arrow, and they both flee. Kara continues the story for Stiles, explaining that they hide for 2 full days to avoid being found. Kara asks Stiles why he's so interested in Derek's story, and he replies that many things have happened recently, and he needs Derek's help before others get hurt. However, Kara tells him she doesn't believe Derek can change what's happening. Stiles insists that Derek can help, especially since the Alpha Pack is hunting him down, implying that the solution is in Derek's hands. Kara counters that while Derek might have been able to help in the past, he's changed too much now. Peter then interjects, saying that it was love that changed Derek. Stiles, surprised, asks if Peter is implying that a love story is what caused Derek's significant transformation. We then see Allison and Scott meeting with Gerard. Scott shakes Gerard's hand, taking on the pain Gerard is feeling. Meanwhile, a girl named Paige tries to play her musical instrument but is disturbed by the sound of a ball game outside. She goes outside to ask the boys to stop playing, only to find Derek playing the game. Paige asks him to go play in the gym, but Derek refuses. Paige goes back inside to continue playing, and Derek follows her to apologize. Gerard asks Allison if they've found another doctor dead, to which she confirms that they've found a third body after Scott saved Deaton. Gerard then tries to plant doubt in Scott's mind about Dr. Deaton, suggesting that he might be the evil druid, Daruk, orchestrating everything and knowing Scott would find him. Scott denies this, saying Deaton would never do such a thing, and asks Gerard for a way to defeat Deucalion. Gerard responds that he can't and admits that even he couldn't defeat him. Allison realizes that Gerard is dodging their questions and tells Scott that they should leave, as it's clear Gerard doesn't know anything useful. However, Gerard says he might be able to help them, revealing that Deucalion isn't always blind and begins telling his story. Meanwhile, Stiles sits with Kara and Peter, listening to Derek's story with Paige. Peter explains that Derek used to meet Paige at a chemical factory. Stiles asks how Peter knows all these details, and Peter responds that he was Derek's best friend. However, Peter is lying, as he was actually spying on Derek. Peter recounts seeing Derek arrive at the factory with Paige, where Derek tells her that he smells blood, prompting them to leave quickly. After they leave, Deucalion, Kali, and Ennis arrive with their packs. Ennis reveals that the Argent family killed one of his pack members and hung him there, and now he seeks revenge. Kali dismisses Ennis's concern, asking why she should care about the death of one of his pack members. Another member of her pack chimes in, explaining that hunters don't differentiate between different groups, implying that all werewolves are targets. Deucalion suggests there must be a reason for the killing. Marco, a member of Deucalion's pack, explains that the werewolf had killed a hunter, which is why they killed him, but Ennis insists it was an accident. Gerard continues his story, explaining that, at the time, each werewolf had their own pack before they decided to kill them and form the Alpha Pack. He mentions a female leader who could transform into a wolf, and they always sought her advice on everything. Dahlia, Derek's mother, arrives and tells them that revenge won't benefit anyone, and Deucalion agrees. However, Ennis refuses to listen, scratching a spiral into the ground, symbolizing his intent for revenge. Ennis heads to the hospital to retrieve the body, but Sheriff Noah arrives and tells him that an investigation needs to happen and that he can't take the body because he's not a relative. Kara asks Peter how this is connected to what happened to Derek, and Peter explains that everything is intertwined. He tells them that Derek was always focused on one thing, revealing his true self to Paige. Peter suggests that Derek wanted to turn Paige into a werewolf to ensure they stayed together forever. Of course, Peter twists the truth, claiming it was Derek's idea and that he tried to stop him. In reality, Peter encouraged Derek by exploiting his fear that Paige would leave him if she discovered he was a shapeshifter. Peter mentions that Derek's mother, Dahlia, would never agree to turn Paige, but there were other werewolves in the area who could do it. Meanwhile, Chris and Gerard arrive at a location marked with a druid sigil and find blood from human sacrifices. Chris explains that they are at the Nematon, a sacred place where druids gather. Allison asks how her father knew so much about druids, and Gerard explains that it's because he believed in knowing your enemy. Gerard continues, recounting how ancient wolves had a connection with the druids, whom they called emissaries, who offered them advice. Gerard shares an ancient story about a man named Lycaon who defied the Greek gods and served Zeus human flesh at a feast. In retaliation, Zeus cursed Lycaon and his family, transforming them into wolves. Gerard's question is how Lycaon found the druids and convinced them to turn him back into a human. Scott asks why specifically the druids, and Gerard explains that the druids discovered a way to change wolves back into humans and vice versa. Since then, werewolves have maintained a relationship with the druids. Kara explains to Stiles that druids are constantly needed for guidance, but they remain a secret, with only the alphas knowing their true identities. She adds that neither she nor Derek knew anything about Deaton, and Peter adds, nor about Morel, his sister. Stiles asks if Morel is also an emissary, to which Peter confirms, saying she serves the Alpha Pack. Stiles is shocked, recalling how he used to confide in Morel, his guidance counselor, sharing personal details. Kara explains that it's their job not to reveal much, and Stiles agrees. Meanwhile, Deaton suggests that Talia and Deucalion should make peace with Gerard. Deaton warns them about Gerard, and Talia advises against meeting him alone, calling him a psychopath. Deucalion responds, saying he's an alpha and wouldn't go alone. At school, Paige is alone when she hears a noise, assuming it's Derek, and goes looking for him, but it turns out to be Ennis. Kara asks Peter why Ennis was chosen, and Peter explains that Ennis needed a new pack member after losing one and that Paige was young and strong. Derek sits in the gym, hearing Paige's voice, but can't stay still and rushes out to find her. Unfortunately, he's too late as Ennis has already bitten her. Throughout all of this, Peter has been watching from afar, not intervening. Gerard continues his story, explaining that he wasn't surprised when Deaton approached him to arrange a meeting with Deucalion. Gerard knew it was a trap. Scott asks why Gerard was so suspicious, and Gerard replies that he understands the nature of werewolves. At the chemical plant, Gerard sets a trap, releasing gas and killing his own men. Deucalion questions why Gerard would kill his own team, and Gerard replies, they wanted peace. Peter concludes the story, revealing that while Paige was meant to transform, not everyone is cut out for it. She fought hard against the change. We then see Deucalion attempting to flee from Gerard, who chases him, intending to kill him. Deucalion, claiming to have had a vision of peace, is blinded when Gerard plunges 2 arrows into his eyes, saying, unfortunately, your vision is weak. Derek, holding Paige's hand, absorbs her pain, apologizing to her. In a heartbreaking moment, Paige reveals she always knew Derek's secret and asks him to kill her to end her suffering, which he does. Peter explains that taking an innocent life darkens a werewolf's soul, turning their eyes blue. Deaton removes the bandages from Deucalion's eyes, telling him that while they will return to their normal appearance, he will never see again. Deucalion asks to be left alone, and Talia and Deaton leave. However, Marco, a member of Deucalion's pack, stays behind, attacking Deucalion. Deucalion, despite being blind, manages to kill Marco. Scott asks Gerard if Deucalion sees like wolves do, not like humans. Gerard reiterates that Deucalion isn't always blind. As Scott and Allison prepare to leave, Gerard asks Scott to take away some of his pain again. After doing so, Scott warns Gerard that if his story causes anyone harm, Scott will return, but next time, he'll take something more than just his pain. Stiles expresses his disbelief in Peter's story, noting that he's learned every story is told from the teller's perspective. Kara asks if Stiles plans to ask Derek about the girl he loved and who died. In the final scene, Talia approaches Derek at the spot where he used to meet Paige. Derek tells his mother that he did something terrible, and she assures him she knows everything. As Derek opens his eyes, they have turned blue. Officer Graham is seen entering the school at night and suddenly spots Danny and his friends behind her. She asks what they're doing there, and Danny explains that they were rehearsing for the concert scheduled for the next day. Danny then asks if something happened, and she tells him that there was an emergency call and instructs them to leave the school immediately. She also tells them to make sure anyone else still in the school leaves as well. Officer Graham tries to call for backup, but her radio isn't working. She then notices someone being dragged by their legs and follows, only to discover that the person she thought she saw dead is actually herself. Suddenly, a strange creature attacks and kills her from behind. Scott and Stiles arrive at the school to meet Lydia and Allison. Lydia tells them that, like every other time, she found herself at the school when she had intended to go somewhere else. Stiles asks her if she found a body, and Lydia responds that she called them so they could find it. Scott then discovers Officer Graham's body, hanging on the school fence. The next day, Stiles sees his father investigating the crime scene and reassures him that they will find the killer. Later, Chris talks to Allison and offers to take her to the memorial concert for the students who died that night. However, Allison tells him that she's not in the mood. As soon as Chris leaves, Allison gears up and takes her weapons from her closet. She senses someone on her balcony and finds Isaac spying on her. She asks if Scott sent him to watch her, and Isaac explains that he's worried about her, though it's clear she can take care of herself. Meanwhile, Jennifer is teaching a class, and Scott tells Stiles that he might be able to get Ethan to talk if he knows who the Dark is, as the Dark could be an emissary to the Alpha Pack. Stiles points out a problem: Aiden, Ethan's brother, won't let them get to him easily. At that moment, Aiden is standing with Ethan, reminding him that they're not students at the school but are there for a specific mission. He also warns Ethan to stay away from Danny, but Ethan insists that Danny poses no threat. Aiden is firm and tells him that if he doesn't stay away, he will kill him. Stiles observes that ever since Ethan and Aiden returned to school, they've always been together, and wonders how they can separate them. They look over at Lydia for help. Lydia agrees to help and approaches Aiden to distract him from Ethan, allowing them to talk to him. She asks Aiden why he's been staring at her, and he tells her it's the first time they've spoken since Boyd's death. Lydia responds that she hasn't spoken to him since he killed Boyd, but Aiden clarifies that it was Kali who killed him, and reminds her that Derek killed Ennis first. Lydia retorts that if that's the case, then it's Derek's turn to kill someone. Aiden brings up how Derek almost killed her and Boyd, and Lydia asks how he knows this. Just then, they see someone carving a spiral into the door, and Aiden says, "Derek." Meanwhile, Ethan stands with Scott and Stiles, asking what they want from him. Scott tells him that they're talking to him because they know that what happened was not entirely his fault. Ethan explains that when he and Aiden first met Deucalion, they were not alphas, they were omegas. He shares that they owe Deucalion a lot, especially Aiden. Ethan steps out of the room, calling out to Derek and telling him that he's ready to fight. However, it turns out that it's Cora, Derek's sister, who is there instead. Ethan explains that omegas are the lowest members of any group, often the weakest and least respected. The group they belonged to before was full of criminals and killers. Stiles asks why they didn't shift into wolves and defend themselves, to which Ethan replies that they were too young and didn't know how. But Deucalion taught them, and eventually, they were able to kill all their enemies. Scott asks what happened to the emissaries, and Ethan reveals that all of them were killed, except for Deucalion's emissary, Morel. Suddenly, Ethan groans in pain, and Scott asks if he's okay, but Ethan says it's not him, it's his brother. Aiden is injured by Cora, who throws him against the wall and continues to hit him. Before Aiden can kill her, Scott, Stiles, and Ethan arrive and restrain him. Ethan explains that Kali gave them until the next full moon to make a choice, and they walk away. Later, Isaac is with Allison at her house, and he asks her how she could believe that her father is the Dark, responsible for killing people. Allison admits she's not sure, but she has evidence, and she shows Isaac a map. Isaac steps back and tells her to look at the bigger picture. When she does, she sees a pentagram and realizes that it has the names of 5 sacrifices. Cora, badly injured, is told by Stiles that what she did was suicidal. She responds that she tried for Boyd, but all they do is find dead bodies. Scott tells her that he's doing the best he can, but Cora retorts that they always arrive too late. Stiles follows her to ensure she's okay. At the school, Derek meets Jennifer and asks her to come with him, but the bell rings, and Jennifer tells him she still has 3 more classes, plus the concert she organized for the evening. Scott visits Morel and asks her about something he wants to know. At the same time, Allison calls Stiles, telling him what she's discovered and that he needs to tell his father everything. Cora asks what Stiles is going to do, and he replies that he's going to tell his father and asks for her help. Morel asks Scott why he's wasting time with her when people are dying, but Scott accuses her of being the one killing them. Morel denies this, saying she's the one standing between Deucalion and his killing spree. She tells Scott that Deucalion wants a real alpha and believes Scott is that alpha. Scott protests, saying that to become an alpha, he would have to kill someone, which would change him and make him not a true alpha. Morel explains that this is the problem: when a madman wants something and can't get it, he destroys it. She warns that if Scott doesn't join Deucalion, Deucalion will destroy him. She also tells Scott that while he may think he's 1 step ahead, Deucalion is 10 steps ahead. Meanwhile, Mr. Westover is in class, writing on the board, when all the words suddenly disappear, and he sees the symbol of the 5 sacrifices. The chalk falls from his hand, landing near Lydia's feet, and she enters to find herself writing the number 2, then screams. Jennifer arrives and tells Lydia they need to inform the students about the teacher's disappearance, but Lydia insists that she's certain he's missing. Stiles is trying to explain the situation to his father. Lydia sends a message to Allison about the missing teacher, and Allison declares that they need to stop her father. They examine the map to find the locations of the electrical currents beneath the school to locate the teacher. Stiles explains to his father that Scott and Derek are werewolves, Kate and Chris are hunters, and Dr. Deaton is a druid. Sheriff Noah, Stiles' father, asks who the Dark is, and Stiles admits they don't know yet. Of course, Noah doesn't believe any of it, but Stiles insists that he has proof and asks Cora to transform so his father can see for himself. Allison and Isaac head to the location where they suspect the teacher is being held. Isaac suggests they should have called Scott for backup, but Allison tells him to stay with her and not be afraid. Isaac then comments that if her father tries to kill him, he'll defend himself. Allison responds that if her father wants him dead, no one will be able to stop him. Suddenly, Isaac catches the scent of blood, and they find the teacher with the Dark. Chris arrives and starts shooting, but he can't kill the Dark. They call Stiles and inform him that the Dark is targeting teachers. Chris later accuses Allison of interfering, which allowed the Dark to escape, but Isaac suggests they should put off dealing with their personal issues until after they save the teachers who are in danger. Stiles is at the hospital with his father, explaining that Scott heals without any help, but his father tells him that just because strange things happen in this town doesn't make them real. For the first time, Stiles stands up to his father, telling him that if his mom were alive, she would believe him. Scott arrives at the concert and finds Lydia, asking her why she's there when she's still visibly shaken. Lydia replies that she's the one who always finds the bodies, so maybe if she's there, they can stop the next death before it happens. Meanwhile, Derek is at the hospital with his sister. Sheriff Noah decides to investigate Stiles' claims and heads to the hospital, asking Melissa for old files from 10 years ago. She offers to help him. The concert begins, and Lydia receives a message from Aiden, asking to meet her quickly because he has something important to tell her. Melissa finds the old files and shows them to Sheriff Noah, confirming that, 10 years ago, there was a body with the same characteristics described by Stiles, and they had assumed it was an animal attack. Melissa also mentions that something else strange happened that day. Aiden searches for his phone and tells Ethan that he can't find it. Melissa recalls how, on the day the girl's body was found, hundreds of birds threw themselves against windows, dying in the process. Sheriff Noah comments that they were sacrificing themselves. Lydia heads to the music room but hears the eerie music she associates with danger. Suddenly, Jennifer appears and attacks her. Scott and Stiles search for Lydia but can't find her. Meanwhile, the concert music transitions to an Arabic tune. Lydia wakes up tied to a chair and asks Jennifer why she's doing this. Jennifer responds by saying she's baffled that people refer to those being killed as sacrifices when they don't even understand the meaning of the word. She explains that the true meaning of sacrifice is a human offering to get closer to a god. Jennifer tells Lydia that she isn't a sacrifice but someone who knows too much. As Jennifer prepares to kill Lydia, Lydia lets out a scream that is heard by both Scott and Derek at the hospital. Jennifer tells Lydia that she doesn't even know the truth about herself, revealing that she is a banshee, a wailing woman who predicts death with her screams. Jennifer likens Lydia to herself, saying that on the outside, she looks like a rose, but inside, she's a snake. She ties Lydia to a chair and grabs a knife, ready to kill her. As the band continues to play the eerie music associated with the Dark's killings, the piano player suddenly dies, and chaos ensues. Sheriff Noah arrives and threatens Jennifer with a gun, but she throws a knife at him. Scott enters, fully transformed, to protect Noah and Lydia, but he is no match for Jennifer. Stiles arrives, but Jennifer locks the door, preventing him from getting in. Noah recalls a severely disfigured girl from years ago and asks Jennifer if she was that girl. Jennifer attacks him, kidnaps him, and escapes. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.